rain was the worst weather to be in sometimes, especially for someone who didn't have shelter for the evening, especially for someone like Irene, 15 years old, no home, no one to rely on but herself. Irene took refuge in the corners of Hell's Highway, the nickname for the section of the city with the gangs, prostitutes, and drug dealers. If you are a businessman who sets up shop on this street, well, like the AC/DC song says, you're on the highway to hell. On that rainy night, Irene was moving through street to street, trying to find some shelter from the rain. She moved into the alley between the flower shop and the bakery, looking for something that looked sort of like a roof. As she moved through the alley in her search for shelter, she heard a noise, like someone bumping against the trash cans further down the alley.
Who's there?
No answer. She waited a moment before returning to her search. As she did, though, she swore out of the corner of her eye someone was standing at the opposite end of the alleyway. She quickly whirled around to look and found no one. The alley was empty.
Who's there?
She asked again, fear entering her voice as she decided perhaps this alley wouldn't be the best place to spend the night. She began to move to the end of the alley, planning to double back down the street and find another place, when 3 men rounded the corner and stood side by side, blocking her way. She slowed herself to a stop, waiting to see if the men would move out of her way. None of them did. She couldn't see the men. They were wearing biker jackets and full-face helmets on their heads.
Where are you at?
One of them spoke. The voice was weird to Irene, but she couldn't figure out why.
Nowhere?
Irene answered, stepping back.
No family?
One of the other men asked.
Well, no, I have a family. They're waiting for me. Yes, they're waiting for me on the other side of the alley, in their car. I need to get there now or they'll be worried about me.
What car is it? Your parents' car?
The car, it's,
Irene paused. Unfortunately for her, the pause was all they needed.
Oh yes, she'll do.
Irene began to step back, planning to break into a run and try to lose these men. When she bumped into something behind her, she froze. Fear ruling her every move, she slowly turned around and came face to face with another man in a biker jacket and a full-face helmet on. The man reached up and slowly lifted off his helmet to reveal a seriously deformed skull with small horns on the forehead. Irene opened her mouth to scream and its hand shot out. Her world turned black.
We only need one more of tonight's quota.
Sora trudged home in the rain, his leather jacket sleet wet and his pants soaked. He pulled his dirt bike into the garage and set it next to his other bike, the one he hoped to ride one day. The motorcycle in question was a Fat Boy Harley. It was covered a bright blue, and it had a windshield on top of the handlebars to protect from bugs and stuff. After Sora had set his muddy white dirt bike against the garage while he walked inside the house, removed his jacket, and stepped into the kitchen to find his mother sitting at the table, evidently waiting for him.
Hey, Mom.
Sora, we need to talk.
She said, pushing a chair for him to sit in.
Right now?
Yes.
Well, I'm kinda soaked, so if I could just dry off.
Now.
His mother repeated firmly. Sora hesitated for a moment before he walked over, still in his wet, soggy pants, sat down and faced his mother.
Is there something wrong?
Sora asked, although he could almost predict the answer.
Yes, Sora, something is very wrong. I want to know why our answering machine seems to be very popular for collecting insults.
She hit the play button and a series of insults streamed out of the machine. Sora listened for a while, and with each message that played, a frown crossed his face.
Okay, I'm not sure how I... Wait. Yeah, I remember doing that one. That one was me. Okay, but the one with the locker room, I never did... Wait, no, yeah, that one was me too.
The unimpressed expression on his mother's face showed Sora she was rapidly losing her patience.
Okay, well, if this is bothering you so much, we'll just change your phone number or put a bunch of numbers on our block list or, I don't know, something.
That's not the point, Sora. The point is, I want to know what's going on with you.
What's going on with me?
Yes. I want to know what the hell you are doing that is leaving 15 hate-filled messages on our house phone.
Nothing. I'm okay. For once in my life.
What do you mean for once in your life? What's that supposed to mean?
Sora looked at her while crossing his arms.
Maybe it means that I'm not the sniveling little baby that I used to be? That I decided to man up and figured out who I am?
Oh, so you want to be remembered as a bully? Because let me tell you, Sora, that is right where you're headed. A bully.
Oh, come on. What makes you think that I'm a...
Sora!
His mother testily cut in.
I'm a reporter. I know when to start digging. Apparently you've made quite a name for yourself at school. A list long of items that teachers have suspected you for doing. And Lord, the things people have told me about you. So do not pull this crap with me, young man. You are a bully.
Oh, who cares? I'm done with being the victim, and I'm done being alone. Now, it's someone else's turn to be alone. And if being a bully is the way to do it, well, that's fine by me.
Sora,
His mom said. It was then as the light shined on her face, Sora could see her eyes were red and puffy.
you chose to be alone. You chose to be all those things. Your father would be so ashamed of you.
Good!
Sora yelled. He stood up and glared at his mom.
I never wanted to be like him anyway! He left us! He walked out of that door and he never looked back! I am nothing like him!
The air was silent. His mom just stared at him in shock for a long while before she took a deep breath and responded with a sentence that would haunt Sora forever.
No, Sora. You're not like your father. But you're not any better than him.
Sora glared at her and then stomped upstairs and slammed his bedroom door. He let out a yell of fury and he flung himself on his bed. What did she mean by that? How could he be worse than his father? He didn't abandon her like he did. He didn't even have a reason for his actions. How could he even be worse than that? He shut his eyes tightly and he buried his head in his pillow. He had a few hours until he was supposed to bring the explosives to Cypher. And besides, he needed to wait until it stopped raining. But until that happened, he could fall asleep while listening to the pitter-patter of rain echoing on his house. The rain seemed to reflect his soul, and for some strange reason, he found the rain soothing, like a lullaby to aid his weariness. Also, with the strange events that happened today, he was due for a small nap. He started to breathe slower and deeper. Soon he was completely asleep.
Namine!
Kairi Nomura called out to her sister.
Dad's getting impatient. He wants to know if you're ready yet.
One moment.
That's what you said 15 minutes ago.
Just one moment.
She rolled her eyes before she surveyed the long pink dress her mother bought for her and smiled. She was going to head to a formal party with her parents, and then she would get changed and meet with her friends later on tonight. She had double-checked her hair once again, and she was about to leave when a voice came from behind her.
Kairi, is this okay?
Kairi turned around and she sighed. Namine was wearing the white dress that was picked for her, but she was obviously trying not to look good, for her hair was not fixed, and her face was still covered in paint smudges.
Namine, Dad would kill you if you went out like that.
Kairi laughed as she took a tissue from her table and dabbed at the paint smudges.
Your hair is fine, but the paint smudges have to go.
I'm sorry. I'm not good at this stuff like you are.
I practiced. I've been going to these kinds of parties longer than you have.
It's not my fault painting lessons keep happening on these nights.
Namine mumbled, to which Kairi raised an eyebrow.
I noticed these painting lessons of yours happen on different nights every week. Is your teacher really that disorganized? Or are you spending your time in the coffee shops instead?
Namine's face went bright red.
How did you...
Yuffie saw you last week. She told me.
Namine's lips scrunched up to a frown and she gave a huff.
Dad's parties are always awkward. I never know what to say to people.
Just be polite. If anything, just smile and nod. These are Dad's political fundraisers, so sometimes the best thing to do is just not to say anything.
She paused for a moment before she decided to share some sisterly advice.
My trick is my responses are generally scripted. I reuse the same lines on different people.
You're kidding.
Namine said skeptically.
They fall for that?
Sure. Watch.
Kairi cleared her throat, put on a beautiful smile and said,
That's so fascinating. Oh yes, I quite agree. I never considered it that way.
Namine stared at her sister. Wide-eyed and a bit taken aback by the alarming amount of sincerity was in her sister's voice as she recited her scripted responses.
And that's all scripted?
Namine asked. Kairi nodded and the artist was instantly impressed.
I can see why everyone likes you.
To Namine's surprise, Kairi's smile vanished and was replaced with a frown. Her eyes looked down at her feet and she sighed.
Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe if I wasn't so loved, I wouldn't have to face...
Stop!
Namine yelled. She covered her own mouth as if she was surprised herself something like this happened.
Stop? Stop what?
Stop putting yourself down because of Sora. You have no reason to be ashamed of yourself if you want to look nice. You can't let him control you like this. You can't ever stop fighting him. If you do stop, then it will be a sign to him that he won. And if you let him win, then what? He'll stop? No, he won't stop. But he shouldn't get in the way of you living your life. He's just a bully. That's all he is, and that's all he ever will be. One day, he'll fade from your mind, and that's all he'll ever be. Just the faded memory of a sad, lonely bully.
Kairi was about to say something when Namine spoke over her, continuing her rant.
Sorry, I just don't like seeing you like this. How he affects you. Sometimes I wish you'd just punch him, but you're so perfectly nice that I have to draw pictures of you punching him. And I have to tell you, I wasted pages of my notebooks drawing something I actually gathered into a book and called it The Revenge of Kairi.
Namine paused and mumbled the last part.
It's a working title. Don't quote me on it.
Kairi's mind was reeling. Not only did her sister actually yelled at her, but somehow managed to make a long emotional rant comical. She couldn't help but laugh. It started off low and bubbled up as her affection for her sister grew every passing second. Namine, who was ranting about something making Sora look like a troll, broke off as her sister's laughter filled the entire room. Soon, she often spoke up and laughed amongst her sister. It was the silliest thing you would ever see from afar, but if you were closer, you'd appreciate the closeness the two sisters had for each other.
You're right.
Kairi finally said.
You're right.
Namine smiled and she looked at her own reflection.
So, is my hair really okay?
Kairi shook her head as her sister suddenly began to fuss over her appearance. She gently took her twin's hand and led her out of the room.
Your hair is fine. Come on. We have a dinner to go to.
Sora shivered slightly as he was drying himself with a towel. Nothing like a quick shower to wake you up from a long nap. He walked over to the sink and he sighed at his own reflection.
Alright now, tonight's the big night,
he said to his own reflection.
You don't want to screw this up now. Just go pick up the stuff, hand them the cipher, and finally get in on this massive project they all been working on. It's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be great.
Sora sighed contentedly at his reflection, but as he was about to walk away, he saw something in the mirror that made him gasp. His hands were bright pink. Not pink as in the pretty color, but pink as intense heat kind of pink.
What?
Sora stared at his hands, then he quickly turned on the faucet and stuck his hands in the cold water. After a while, he turned off the faucet, hoping to find his hands were their normal color. Instead, he found they were still pink, and even worse, smoke was beginning to form out of his hands.
What the hell?
Sora slowly turned around, but no one was in his room. It was empty. However, before he could be assured that everything was fine, the voice called out again. Sora took a deep breath and he walked into his room, and still no one was there. However, he heard an odd sound. It was the sound of a motor revving. A motorcycle. Sora quickly threw on his pants, a t-shirt, and his leather jacket and went downstairs. The rain must have let up while he was showering because the pitter-patter had ceased, but he could still feel the moist air around him when he stepped outside. When he stepped off the front porch and out into the grass, he saw something odd. His Fat Boy Harley motorcycle was out on the driveway, its engine revving, and standing upright on its own. Sora walked over to his bike and he was about to place his hand on the handlebars, but then a sinister laugh caught his attention. and he turned his gaze to look down the road. Sora froze for a moment, but then he raised his hand and pointed at someone down the road.
You. Hello, Sora.
Replied a man coming down the road, his slightly bald head reflecting off the porch light and his dark suit nearly blending in with the night. Mephisto had arrived.
I knew I recognized that voice.
Sora said, circling around the bike to put some distance between them.
It was you who kept me alive when the bike crashed.
Oh no, that was you.
Mephisto chuckled, walking around the bike as well.
That was just my little gift I gave you many years ago coming into effect.
Gift? What did you do to me?
You'll find out by the end of tonight. But I have a job for you, Sora.
A job?
Sora stuttered, trying to keep his composure.
Yes, you agreed to work for me, remember? Well, now's the time you pay off your debt. Someone or something is trying to break the binding, a curse that has been in place since long before you were born. I want you to find out whoever is doing this and destroy them.
Sora for a moment felt like that little 8-year-old in the rain, pleading this very same man to let him go. That feeling faded. He refused to be like that 8-year-old boy again. He narrowed his eyes at Mephisto and he growled,
Do it yourself.
Sora swung himself over on his bike, hoping to drive off and leave this man in his dust. However, Mephisto simply chuckled.
It doesn't work like that. You swore to me that you would work for me one day. True, I could just take you to hell. You are indeed only collateral for the original deal.
When Sora tried to ride his bike, he found his fingers wouldn't obey him. When he tried to move his bike back into the garage, he found that he couldn't move either. His hand tightened on the handlebars and his feet remained firm. One on the ground, steadying the bike, the other on the bike's footrest.
But
Mephisto continued, taking no notice of Sora's vain attempts to escape.
I have found use for you. So what do you say you just cooperate, and we can both walk out of this happy? What do you say, Sora?
Despite Sora's body unable to move, he managed to growl.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
Mephisto stood in front of the bike and said the words that pressed down on Sora's soul and made him as helpless as a kitten. 4 little words that destroyed all of his free will.
You have no choice.
Mephisto lifted his cane in the air, and when he stomped the ground, he disappeared in thin air. But as he disappeared, the bike's wheels began to spin, yet remained in their place for a moment. Then the bike shot forward, leaving a trail of flame behind it.
Damn it! I was too late.
He was too late to stop Mephisto. He had waited for the sun to go down, and the moment it set, he made his way to the house of Sora Shimomura. It seems, however, he had only arrived moments too late, but his hunch was right. The binding was indeed weakening. The mysterious comatose patients at the hospital proved it as well. The foolish human doctors would label them as brain dead. But then again, how could human doctors tell that they were actually missing their souls? More like ripped from their being is the proper term. They were the people that wouldn't cause attention to the authorities. Orphan kids, the homeless, the unimportant ones, the ones who lived upon the streets of the night. There was no one in the world that deserved that kind of fate, to be hollow and empty, without being or life, a fate worse than death. He had been tracking the culprits for weeks now. It was indeed a force of the undead. However, he could not find who was controlling the strings, so to speak. He was busier trying to prevent young Sora from becoming the Ghost Rider, another type of fate worse than death. However, it seemed that it was inevitable that he would become the rider who would destroy evil, and as a fellow hunter of the evil souls of hell, he would have to assist them. He turned his gaze away from the house into the city where the bike had sped off to. It shouldn't be so hard to find him. He just had to follow the trail of flames.